The air in the restaurant cracks. It's not a sound I hear with my ears, but feel deep in my bones, a splintering noise from inside my own chest. Across the table, his face twists, contorts into something I've never seen before, a mask of pure, unadulterated panic mixed with a sputtering rage that finds no immediate outlet. His eyes bulge, fixed on the phone in his hand. The color drains from his cheeks, leaving behind a ghastly, ashen gray. The confident, smug posture he held moments ago, the one that broadcast his perceived untouchable success, crumbles in an instant. He slams the phone down, the noise sharp against the quiet murmur of the upscale dining room. His breath comes in ragged gasps, like he's been punched in the gut. He looks at me, and for the first time in a long time, there's no pretense, no lie in his gaze. Just a raw, primal fear. Let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. And if you haven't already, please subscribe, it helps me more than you know. My life was built on a foundation of quiet, meticulous work. I wasn't flashy. I didn't chase headlines or crave the spotlight. I built something tangible, brick by brick, contract by contract, year after year. A commercial real estate portfolio. Warehouses, office parks, retail spaces. It's not glamorous. It's concrete, steel, logistics, and endless spreadsheets. It's leveraging debt wisely, understanding zoning laws inside and out, anticipating market shifts before they happen. It's a world of due diligence, of knowing the land, the structures, the invisible lines of power that govern every inch of buildable space. It was my world, my fortress, my security. He was part of the picture, but never the architect. Daniel. Charming, smooth, a born networker. He worked in finance, something abstract and fluid, the opposite of my solid world. He talked about deals, about wealth generation, about futures I couldn't quite grasp but always sounded impressive. We met at some industry event, a blur of forced smiles and lukewarm canapés. He was attentive, funny, seemed genuinely interested in my work, which most people found terribly dry. He admired my success, he said. My independence. He painted a picture of a shared future, two successful people building a life together, supporting each other. It sounded nice. Stable. We married quietly. Our life together settled into a comfortable routine. Dinners out, weekend trips, managing our separate, yet increasingly intertwined finances. We kept most things separate professionally, my buildings, his funds. But over the years, our lives merged. My success grew. Substantially. The market was good, my investments were shrewd. The fortress grew taller, its walls thicker. Daniel's career seemed to plateau in comparison, or perhaps just wasn't as visible to me. He handled our joint accounts, managed the household finances, the bills, the day-to-day money flow. It made sense. I was busy dealing with tenants, contractors, lawyers, city planners. The mundane stuff felt like a distraction. He was good at it, or so I thought. He provided comfort, companionship, a sounding board, a different perspective on the world outside of concrete and zoning. He was the warm, human element in my very structured life. He was home, or the idea of it. The walls of my fortress felt secure, and he was inside with me. The first crack wasn't a dramatic explosion. It was subtle, a hairline fracture I almost missed. A transaction on a joint account summary that seemed off. A large sum, marked vaguely as investment opportunity. I asked him about it. He brushed it off. A complex fund, international, high yield. Wouldn't I trust him? He handled this side of things. My side was real estate, his was this. I let it go. Trust, after all, was supposed to be the bedrock. Then there were others. More transactions. Larger sums. Less vague descriptions, but still opaque enough to require explanation. Each time I asked, he had an answer. A new venture. A promising startup. Diversifying our portfolio. His explanations grew more elaborate, more insistent. He'd get slightly defensive, accusing me of not trusting him, of being too focused on my own world to appreciate his efforts to grow our wealth. He made me feel small, questioning, insecure about my own judgment outside of my established expertise. He painted me as paranoid, control-obsessed. The gaslighting was subtle at first, a creeping fog that distorted my own reality. Maybe he was right. Maybe I was being overly cautious. My world was stable, yes, but perhaps too rigid. Perhaps I needed someone like him to navigate the fluid, high-stakes world of finance. He made it sound like he was protecting us by making these bold moves. The sums grew. From tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands. My gut screamed, a low, persistent hum of warning that I kept trying to silence. I told myself it was anxiety, the fear of the unknown. I was used to seeing every dollar accounted for, tied to a specific property, a specific return. His world felt like smoke and mirrors by comparison. But he was my husband. He loved me. We were a team. Why would he jeopardize what we had? Why would he jeopardize me? He started working longer hours, traveling more. Business trips, he said. Important meetings. Opportunities he couldn't miss. Our comfortable routine began to fray. Dinners became less frequent. Conversations grew shorter, more strained. When he was home, he was often distant, preoccupied, always on his phone. He'd flinch if I came near it. Red flags. I see them now, waving frantically in the rearview mirror. But at the time, I rationalized them away. Stress from work. The pressure of these big deals he was supposedly making. I tried to be supportive, to give him space, to not add to his burden. I told myself this was what a good partner did. The silence between us became a living entity, filling the rooms, pressing down on me. The fortress of my life, which once felt so secure, now felt cold, empty, echoing with unanswered questions. Sleep became a luxury. I'd lie awake, the numbers spinning in my head, the missing money, the vague explanations, his growing distance. A chilling suspicion began to take root, something far worse than a bad investment. It whispered of betrayal, not just financial, but personal. I started digging, secretly at first. It felt wrong, invasive, a violation of the trust one was desperate to believe still existed. But the gnawing fear was relentless. I accessed bank statements I hadn't reviewed in detail for years, trusting him to handle them. My blood ran cold. The transactions were there, hundreds of them, totaling millions. Not flowing into complex investment funds, but to contractors, suppliers, luxury retailers, and a specific address I didn't recognize. An address in a different part of the city. Not ours. The address led me to a building. An upscale condominium. It wasn't a commercial property. It wasn't an investment in the traditional sense. It was residential. My hands trembled as I drove past it. A sleek, modern building, glass and steel reflecting the cold city sky. Who lived there? Who was receiving millions of dollars of my money? The answer, when it came, was a physical blow. It wasn't hard to find her. A name associated with the address. A quick search, cross-referenced with Daniel's online presence. Pictures surfaced. Them together. Not just at events, but intimate settings. Dinners, vacations, stolen weekends. Her name was Sarah. Younger, conventionally beautiful, everything I wasn't in that moment of discovery, confident, seemingly happy, draped in clothes and jewelry I recognized from invoices tied to the unknown address. The pit in my stomach wasn't just fear anymore. It was a burning, corrosive acid. He wasn't just gambling our money away. He was building a life with someone else, using the very foundation of my hard work. The scale of it was breathtaking in its audacity. He wasn't just having an affair. He was financing an entire alternative reality. The transactions weren't just covering her living expenses. They were massive payments to construction companies, interior designers, luxury material suppliers. The condo wasn't just bought. It was being gutted and rebuilt. A complete, high-end renovation. He was pouring millions into making her space, their space, a palace. My money. Money I had earned, saved, invested, planned for. Money meant for our future, for my retirement, for the security of the fortress I had built. It was being used to feather the nest of his mistress. It felt like a physical defilement of everything I had worked for. The initial shock gave way to a wave of nausea so powerful it buckled my knees. I retreated into myself, trying to process the raw data of his betrayal. The financial records spread across my desk became an obscene tapestry of lies and deceit. Every number was a stab, every invoice a sneer. The sheer volume of the theft, the casual way he had siphoned off years of my life's effort, was incomprehensible. $4 million. $4 million gone. Poured into someone else's life, someone else's home. It was a monument to his lies, built with my own bricks. Confrontation felt impossible at first. How do you confront someone who has so thoroughly dismantled your reality? How do you even begin to speak across a chasm of such profound deceit? I pictured his charming denial, his practiced indignation, his ability to twist reality until I questioned my own sanity. I couldn't face that yet. I was too raw, too vulnerable. I needed to understand the full scope, to gather every piece of evidence, to steel myself for the inevitable battle. I hired a private investigator, not just for the affair that was sickeningly clear, but for the financial trail. I needed an expert to untangle the web, to confirm the destination of every dollar. The PI's report confirmed my worst fears and added details that made my blood run cold. Daniel had been planning this for a long time. He'd set up shell companies, moved money through layers of accounts to obscure the source. The renovation was extensive, lavish. Every detail funded by me. My money paid for the imported marble countertops, the custom cabinetry, the state-of-the-art smart home system, the panoramic windows, the designer furniture, even the absurdly expensive abstract art hanging on the walls. It was a physical manifestation of his contempt. He was using my success to fund his infidelity, laughing all the way. The mistress, Sarah, appeared to be fully aware, or at least willfully blind. The report indicated she was living a life of leisure, funded entirely by Daniel, and thus by me. She enjoyed the luxury, the travel, the gifts, asking no questions about the source. She was a willing participant in the consumption of my life's work. The pain was a constant companion. It was a dull ache in my chest that intensified with every new discovery. My focus at work suffered. I went through the motions, negotiating deals, reviewing plans, but my mind was always elsewhere, replaying moments, searching for clues I had missed, signs I had ignored. The easy trust one had once extended felt naive, foolish. I felt humiliated, not just by the affair, but by the financial manipulation. I was a successful businesswoman, an expert in my field, yet I had been utterly blind, robbed in my own home, by my own husband. The fortress felt like a cardboard box, easily breached, worthless. Daniel became a stranger living in my house. I maintained the pretense of normalcy, the silence a protective shield. He came and went, oblivious, or perhaps simply confident in his ability to deceive. He seemed happier, lighter. The stress he had once claimed was from his big deals was gone, replaced by an easy arrogance. He was getting away with it. He was building his new life on the ruins of mine. The thought was unbearable. Friends noticed I was different, quieter, paler. I offered vague explanations, stress at work, not sleeping well. How could I explain the truth? How do you tell someone the man you built your life with has systematically stolen from you, not just your money, but your sense of safety, your belief in shared futures? The shame was crippling. I felt like a failure, personally and professionally. The woman who built empires of steel and concrete, had let my own life be dismantled from the inside out. Legal counsel confirmed the complexity of the situation. Marital assets, tracing funds, potential fraud charges. It would be messy, expensive, and public. A lengthy court battle, airing all the dirty laundry, the humiliation amplified by every headline. Divorce seemed inevitable, but the thought of simply dividing what was left after he had stolen so much felt like another form of defeat. He would walk away with a settlement, free to continue his life with Sarah, while I was left to pick up the pieces, financially wounded and emotionally scarred. Simply reclaiming the money felt insufficient. It wouldn't erase the betrayal. It wouldn't dismantle the monument to his lies. The thought of him and Sarah living together in that lavish condo, built with my money, enjoying a life I had unknowingly financed, became an obsession. It wasn't just a building, it was a symbol of his betrayal, her complicity, and my humiliation. Standard legal routes felt too slow, too public, too focused on monetary recovery, while leaving the emotional ledger unbalanced. I wanted more than compensation. I wanted justice? No, something colder, more precise. I wanted to see his carefully constructed alternative reality crumble. I wanted the monument to his lies to fall. I spent weeks poring over the PI's report, the financial statements, but also records related to the condo itself. Planning permissions, building codes, inspection reports. My work in commercial real estate had given me an intimate understanding of these things. The devil was always in the details, in the fine print, in the regulations that governed every nail and beam. I knew that constructing or renovating a building was a labyrinth of permits, inspections, and stringent requirements designed to ensure safety and structural integrity. Deviations, shortcuts, ignoring proper procedures, they all had consequences. I noticed inconsistencies in the records. Permits that seemed rushed, inspections that were signed off perhaps too quickly. Some details about the original structure of the building, notes from previous inspections years ago, raised a flag. The condo unit was on a high floor, part of a larger, older structure that had undergone significant modifications over the decades. There were notes about load-bearing walls, HVAC systems integrated into the building's core, potential issues with plumbing stacks and electrical conduits that required careful handling during any major renovation. My mind, trained to see the bones of a building, began to piece things together. A renovation of the scale Daniel had funded, if not done with absolute adherence to complex building codes, especially in an older structure, could create serious problems. Structural issues, fire hazards, compromised building systems. A single overlooked detail, a shortcut taken to save time or money, even with my money, perhaps the contractors he hired were less scrupulous, could have cascading effects. Especially if load-bearing walls were altered without proper structural support, or if new plumbing/electrical work wasn't correctly tied into the main building systems, or if HVAC changes affected airflow and fire safety. I didn't need to prove Daniel had committed fraud to me in a way that would stand up in criminal court, though the civil case was coming. I needed to find a weakness in the very structure he had poured my money into. A weakness so fundamental that it would render the entire renovation, the entire symbol of his betrayal, worthless. My knowledge of building codes became my weapon. I consulted with experts, structural engineers, fire safety inspectors, electrical contractors, not as the betrayed wife, but as a real estate professional concerned about potential issues in older buildings undergoing renovation. I asked hypothetical questions, presented anonymized scenarios based on the details I had found about the condo unit and the building structure. The picture that emerged was chillingly promising. Major structural changes in a high-rise, especially altering load-bearing elements or significantly changing the layout in relation to core building systems, required meticulous planning, permits, and inspection at every stage. If those steps were rushed, if corners were cut, if the work deviated from approved plans or violated code, the consequences could range from minor fines to, in severe cases, rendering the unit uninhabitable or even compromising the safety of the entire building. The PI's report mentioned Daniel seemed eager to finish the renovation quickly. He was pushing contractors, paying bonuses for speed. Speed in construction, especially complex high-rise renovations, was often the enemy of meticulous adherence to code. Contractors under pressure might take shortcuts. Inspectors might be bribed or simply overwhelmed. Daniel, focused on creating his love nest, likely didn't care about the fine print of building regulations. He just wanted it done. Fast. My strategy began to crystallize. I wouldn't just sue him for the money. I would attack the asset itself. I would use my expertise, my understanding of the system, to expose the fundamental flaws in the monument he had built with my stolen funds. I didn't contact the city directly with accusations. That would seem vindictive, tied to the divorce, easily dismissed as a spiteful move from a jilted wife. Instead, I used the network I had built over years in the real estate industry. I contacted contacts in city planning and the permits and inspections department, people I had worked with, people who respected my professionalism and my deep knowledge of the regulations. I raised concerns, anonymous reports about potential code violations in a specific building that had undergone recent, extensive renovations. I cited specific regulations, pointed towards types of work that were commonly done improperly, structural changes, plumbing tie-ins, electrical load issues. I framed it as a professional courtesy, a concern for public safety based on worrying trends I was seeing in rushed renovation projects across the city. I provided just enough detail, unit number, type of work believed to have been done, to trigger a closer look. The city has protocols for such reports, especially concerning structural integrity and fire safety in high-rise buildings. They have to investigate. It's a legal requirement. An initial inspection would be scheduled, ostensibly routine, but triggered by my anonymous tip. My experts had helped me identify the likely weak points, the areas where contractors might have cut corners under pressure, or where Daniel's desire for a specific layout might have overridden structural necessities. These were the points I subtly highlighted in my concerns to my contacts. I knew the system. I knew how to get the right kind of attention directed to the right place without leaving my fingerprints all over it. It wasn't about making false claims. It was about directing scrutiny to potential violations that my research suggested were highly probable. While the wheels of bureaucracy began to turn slowly, I continued gathering evidence for the civil case, but my focus had shifted. Winning in court was one thing, a financial recovery. Destroying the symbol of his betrayal, the physical manifestation of his lies, that was another. That was dismantling his victory. The waiting was agonizing. I maintained the facade at home, watching Daniel, seeing his anticipation building. The renovation was nearing completion. He spoke about moving in soon, about starting fresh. He was oblivious, arrogant in his perceived triumph. He saw me as defeated, broken, probably assuming I would settle for a quiet divorce, licking my wounds. He had no idea the trap I had set, not in a courtroom, but in the very foundation of his new life. The city's inspection process is thorough, especially once a red flag is raised. They wouldn't just send one inspector. They'd send specialists, structural, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, fire safety. They would review the original building plans, the permits submitted for the renovation, and compare them against the work actually done. They would look for deviations, for work done without permits, for violations of code. And based on my research and the advice of my experts, the likelihood of finding significant issues in a rushed, large-scale renovation like this in an older building was extremely high. Weeks turned into months. I imagined the inspectors swarming the condo, their clipboards out, their flashlights probing into walls, examining the structural supports, the electrical panels, the plumbing. I pictured them shaking their heads, finding fault after fault. I tracked public records related to the building when I could, seeing if any violations were being logged, any stop work orders issued. Nothing public yet, but I knew how these things worked. Investigations took time. Reports had to be compiled, findings reviewed by multiple departments. During this period, Daniel became even more unbearable. He acted like a man who had won. He talked vaguely about new opportunities, about simplifying his life, about the future. He was so close to having it all, the new life, the mistress, the lavish home. All paid for with my money, leaving me behind. His smugness was a constant provocation. But I held my tongue, maintaining the facade. Let him feel triumphant. Let him believe he had gotten away with it. The higher he built his tower of lies, the harder the fall would be. I filed for divorce. The papers were served quietly. His reaction was predictable, shock, then anger. How dare I? After all he had done for us? He tried to spin it, to make it seem like I was the problem, that I was being unreasonable, that he had been forced into whatever he called the affair, and the theft. He still denied the scale of the financial malfeasance, claiming the money was tied up in legitimate investments, just temporarily inaccessible. He didn't know I had the PI report, the bank statements, the invoices, the photos. Not yet. The divorce proceedings became another battleground, but my strategy wasn't focused solely on the financial fight in court. That was secondary. My real play was happening outside the courtroom, in the bureaucratic maze of city inspections. I knew that when the city's findings finally came down, they would be irrefutable, backed by regulatory power, not just my word against his. The city completed its investigation. The reports were compiled. Multiple significant code violations were found. Structural alterations that compromised the building's integrity. Improperly installed electrical systems that posed a fire hazard. Plumbing modifications that weren't up to code. Violations of fire separation requirements. The sheer scale of noncompliance was staggering. It wasn't just minor issues, it was fundamental flaws in the renovation itself. Rushed work, ignored regulations, potentially bribed or incompetent contractors, lack of proper oversight. Daniel, in his haste and arrogance, had built a financial death trap with my money. The city issued its ruling. Due to the severity and multitude of the code violations and the potential risk to the safety of the building and its occupants, the condo unit was deemed uninhabitable. A formal condemnation order was issued. The unit was red-tagged. No one could live there. The renovation he had poured $4 million of my money into, the lavish palace he had built for himself and his mistress, was worthless. It couldn't be occupied. Fixing the violations would require gutting most of the recent work and starting over, likely costing more than the unit was worth, and potentially triggering deeper structural assessments of the entire building, opening up a Pandora's box of liability. The most probable outcome was that the unit would remain empty, a hollow shell, until someone, perhaps the building association, decided how to handle the massive problem Daniel had created. The $4 million was gone, sunk into a condemned property. The phone call came during dinner. We were technically separated, living in different parts of the house, but had agreed to a strange dinner together, likely at his lawyer's insistence, to discuss settlement terms. I knew the city's decision was imminent. I had received a quiet heads-up from one of my contacts. The order was being finalized, going out that day. He sat across from me, looking relaxed, confident. He probably thought he had me cornered, that I would agree to his terms, eager to end the unpleasantness. He had his phone on the table, as always. It rang. An unfamiliar number. He frowned, debated ignoring it, but his curiosity, or perhaps his ego, got the better of him. He answered. I watched his face as he listened. The initial frown of annoyance shifted to confusion, then disbelief. His eyes widened. His jaw went slack. The color drained from his face with sickening speed. The fork clattered from his hand, hitting the plate with a sharp clink that echoed in the sudden silence. He stood up abruptly, knocking his chair back. It scraped loudly against the floor. What? He choked out, his voice hoarse. No, that's impossible. You can't.
Condemned?
For what? His voice rose, becoming frantic, high-pitched. He was yelling into the phone now, oblivious to the other diners. Code violations? What codes? We had permits. The work was approved. He listened for a moment, his face a mask of dawning horror. Structural issues? Electrical fire hazards?
What are you talking about?
It's brand new. We just finished. He was trembling. The phone slipped from his grasp, bouncing off the table before hitting the floor. It lay there, screen dark. No, he whispered, sinking back into his chair. No, no, no. His gaze landed on me. The arrogance was gone, replaced by a raw, exposed vulnerability. He searched my face, perhaps looking for answers, for pity, for anything. I met his gaze, my own expression unreadable. I felt nothing. No triumph, no joy, just a cold, quiet emptiness. The acid in my stomach had turned to ice. He started to babble, disjointed phrases tumbling out. It's all gone. The renovation.
Sarah.
Where will she live? We were supposed to move in next week.
$4 million.
My God, $4 million.
Condemned?
How could this happen? He looked at me again, his eyes desperate.
Did you
know about this? Did you do something? His voice was accusatory, but laced with a flicker of fear that perhaps, just perhaps, the quiet wife he had betrayed wasn't as oblivious as he thought. I didn't answer. I just looked at him, the man who had systematically dismantled my life, now watching his own new life collapse, literally built on a faulty foundation. He buried his face in his hands, his body shaking with sobs. It's all gone. My money. Our future. My money. He still didn't get it. It had never been his money. It was mine. Stolen. Poured into a monument of deceit that now stood as a hollow shell, a testament to his own folly. The restaurant manager approached, concerned. Daniel waved him away frantically. I signaled the manager, a small, almost imperceptible nod. He understood. This was a private, if explosive, moment. Daniel lifted his head, his face blotchy and streaked with tears. The arrogant mask was completely shattered. He looked lost, bewildered. "What do I do?" he whimpered, the sound pathetic. I finally spoke. My voice was low, steady, devoid of emotion. "You reap what you sow, Daniel." He stared at me, uncomprehending. "You took $4 million, I continued, each word deliberate. "Money I earned, money I built. You poured it into a monument to your lies, a place for you and your mistress. You rushed it, you cut corners, you thought you were above the rules, above the law, above consequence. You built it on a faulty foundation, not just structurally, but morally." I paused, letting the silence hang heavy. "And now the city says it's uninhabitable, worthless, condemned." The realization dawned in his eyes, a horrific understanding of what I had done, or perhaps what I had allowed. I hadn't caused the code violations. He had, with his rushed, careless, stolen money renovation. But I had found them. I had used my knowledge, my network, to ensure they were discovered, to ensure the bureaucratic hammer fell. I hadn't just waited for karma. I had nudged it, pointed it in the right direction, right towards the symbol of his betrayal. He collapsed back in the chair, looking utterly defeated. The battle wasn't over, not legally, but the immediate, symbolic victory was mine. He had poured my money into building his dream, and I had watched it be officially declared a nightmare. The aftermath is quiet. The screaming in the restaurant was a release valve, brief and intense. Now there's just the silence again, but a different kind. It's not the silence of uncertainty or fear. It's the silence that follows an explosion, the ringing in your ears after the shockwave passes. Daniel is broken. Not just emotionally, but strategically. The condo wasn't just his love nest. It was likely a significant asset he planned to keep in the divorce, hidden or undervalued, a place to retreat to with Sarah. Now it's a liability, a monument to his folly. The civil case against him is now significantly stronger. The origin of the $4 million is clear, its destination is clear, and its current state, worthless due to his own reckless actions, paints a very specific picture for any judge or jury. He didn't just mismanage funds, he destroyed their value through negligence and possibly fraud in the renovation process itself. Sarah is gone. The moment the condemnation order came through, the lavish lifestyle disappeared. A palace built on sand, or in this case, on code violations and stolen money, doesn't hold a relationship together. She wasn't in love with Daniel. She was in love with the lifestyle my money provided. With the lifestyle gone, so was she. My own emotions are complex. There's no pure joy, no exultation. Seeing him brought low isn't the triumphant moment I might have imagined in my darkest hours. There's a cold satisfaction, yes, a sense of vindication that my strategic thinking, my knowledge, my patience paid off. The fortress wasn't breached forever. I found a way to defend it, to strike back using the very tools of my world. But beneath the satisfaction is a profound sadness. The loss isn't just the money, or even the marriage. It's the loss of the life I thought I had, the future I believed in. The betrayal cuts deeper than any financial loss. Rebuilding feels daunting. The divorce is ongoing, cleaning up the financial mess he created. But the power dynamic has shifted completely. I'm no longer the passive victim. I'm the one who understood the system, who saw the weakness, who waited and acted with precision. The $4 million is likely lost forever, sunk into that condemned concrete shell. But I have my integrity, my expertise, and the cold comfort of knowing that his attempt to build a new life on the ruins of mine resulted only in his own spectacular, self-inflicted demolition. The foundation of my life is cracked, yes, but I know how to build. I know how to repair. I know how to make things structurally sound. He only knew how to consume and destroy. The fortress was breached, but I reclaimed the ground, piece by painful piece. The air is still, the echoes of his screams fading. What's left is the quiet determination to rebuild, this time with stronger walls, with clearer vision, and with no room for the kind of careless destruction he embodied. If this story hit close to home, I'd love to hear your version. Drop a comment with where you're listening from and what time it is. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. It helps bring more of these to life.